The advocates of capitalism, the people who beat the drum of capitalism, argue that in such a society is really the best of all societies. And they do so for a number of reasons. First of all, they say a society organized by free market is really the best way of organizing how we meet our needs. And they say so because, well, if we think about the way markets are supposed to operate, if you and I are both making hamburgers, for example, um, maybe I'm trying to make a very fancy, very grass-fed organic burger. It's too pricey. Someone across the street is making a cheaper burger. It's not as high quality. And someone down the street from them is maybe making a middle of the road burger. Arguably, if we are competing for your dollars, that's going to do a couple things. One is, first off, you'll notice you have more choices. Isn't that great? So the advocates argue that it creates choices, it creates variety, it creates really kind of freedom. Um, but also that competition between us on this marketplace means that I have to either lower my cost or change what I'm making or go out of business because I can't get customers. In the same way, if the person next door to me is making a crappy burger and people have other options, then they aren't going to go there. So this, ideally, competition in a marketplace is supposed to create the optimal balance, the optimal outcome between kind of cost effectiveness, quality, and choice. Right? They can't be too bad or nobody will eat them. They'll go to the competitors. They can't be too expensive either. But there's still some variety, so if I want to spend an extra dollar on a burger, I can. This begs the question that we ended with on the last video of why are some things not on the market then? Should some things maybe not be produced for profit? Why don't we produce energy for profit? Why don't we build roads for profit? Well, part of the problem is that something like a road, it's very difficult to get the profit out of because first off, you spend a lot of money building it up front, and you only will get your money back over a very long period of time of people driving on it as they use it. Right? And for people who want to make a profit, that long time is too long. So many companies don't want to invest in these large projects that governments do, in part because the profit motive keeps them from doing so. Indeed, increasingly today, companies are focused on short-term profits, not long-term profits. And this has to do with the changing structure of companies that we won't go into here. But again, let's visit this question of should some things maybe not be on the market? For example, increase the price of insulin, something that can be easily and cheaply made, has risen extraordinarily in the last 10 years, since the late 1990s. Right? So this is a drug that people with diabetes need to survive. It is something their bodies cannot manufacture and that we can for cheap. And yet, because companies are interested in profit, the price of this life-saving and necessary drug have gone up extraordinarily. Volkswagen, not long ago, was accused of duping essentially those emissions testers. They said they were making green cars, meaning more environmentally friendly cars, and they sold those cars to us in the same way. Maybe we wanted to be a more environmentally conscious driver. Great, now we can buy a Volkswagen. The problem was they weren't actually more environmentally friendly. They had just programmed the cars to essentially trick the computers that test their emissions to make them seem more environmentally friendly. Why would they do that? Here we see an instance in which a company gave tainted meat and sold it to, I believe, a school district and to Trader Joe's, for example, a grocery store. Why would someone do something this awful? Why would somebody sell meat that they knew was bad? This comes to one of the most fundamental contradictions in the capitalist system, and that's between use value and exchange value. Right. So in a for-profit system, people are worried about making money. Think about it. If I'm producing something for profit, I'm not actually worried about the usefulness of the thing. Yes, it does have to be useful for me to sell it to you. I can't sell you a mud pie, for example, because that has no use value. But really what I'm focused on is getting the exchange value, the money, the profit for it. And so what this means is that companies often can be obsessed with that exchange value and forget about use value. So instead of actually creating an environmentally friendly car, they just want to tell you it's environmentally friendly to charge you more money for it. If I'm a producer of beef, I have sunk a lot of money into those cows, and whether or not they are useful to people, I need to realize that exchange value or my farm is going to go under. Right? So your new phone may do two new things slightly differently than your old one. It doesn't have much new use value, but Apple or Samsung will invest lots of money trying to convince you that it does have a new use value so they can realize its exchange value, its profit. Right? So in a society such as ours, we don't produce for use value, we produce for exchange value. This means that some things that we need don't get produced, right? If a drug or if a disease affects mostly poor people, companies don't care. They are not going to put in the money to try to treat it because it's expensive and poor people cannot pay. There was no treatment for Ebola for a long time until it came to the US, and government started putting money into it because it only affects people mostly in Western Africa. And they don't have enough money to pay for a new drug. So companies simply don't make it. So there are useful things we need that companies don't make. So we're not producing for use and for need, we're producing for exchange value. So there are things we need we don't get, and there are things we don't need that we make way too much of. Right? This is a crucial contradiction of a capitalist society, of an unplanned marketplace, organized society. So what about something that is planned? Socialism is bad, right? I mean, definitely. That looks pretty scary. This begs the question, have we ever seen anything that's actually socialism? The only examples we have are maybe North Korea, China, and Cuba. But what does that really, what do these societies really show us? If one of the fundamental things in socialism is the idea that the people own and control production and making stuff and companies, well, in none of those countries do the people actually have any say. They're all authoritarian or totalitarian systems. What that means is that there is no public ownership and control. Right? It's not really socialism so much as what we call state-run capitalism. And it's shown to be very effective. China is quickly becoming the economic superpower of the world. So what would socialism look like? Well, one thing is what we call decommodification. This means taking things off of the market, not making them as a commodity. So most countries, for example, take healthcare off the market because they realize that you don't choose when you get sick, so it's not about free choice. In our country, it is a totally open market. So people charge whatever they want, and insurance companies, their whole profit motive is to not pay out of insurance. In other words, not to pay your medical bills. Because the way insurance works is that we all give them money, and then when bad things happen, we are insured from that collectively shared money. But insurance companies make money if they don't pay. So their entire profit motive is to not pay for our health care. Socialism also sees redistribution of wealth from the wealthiest people to the poorer people. So this means Jeff Bezos, who's worth multiple billions of dollars, we would tax him, which means we would move his money from his private property into public systems. And maybe we could use it to fund healthcare. We could use it to build schools. We could use it to pay teachers. We could use it for all the things we need as a society. Many countries do this to greater or lesser degrees. Um, and ultimately, it would mean ownership, public ownership and control of corporations. So that would mean that when we find a new deadly virus like Ebola or coronavirus, we tell the drug manufacturers, because we own them, all right, let's research this hard. Let's try to find a cure for this, because we're not really interested in making a profit on it. We're trying to produce for social need, for the things that we need. Most countries, Western countries, the wealthiest countries, fall somewhere in between socialism and capitalism. Um, Sweden, the Netherlands, um, Denmark, we see a high degree of decommodification and redistribution there, and even a certain degree of public ownership, that we don't see much of that anywhere. And that would really tip the scales from a capitalist system of private ownership to a more socialist system. It's worth noting that those Scandinavian countries of Sweden and Netherlands, where they have, for example, they have public uh, provision of schools, job training, healthcare, um, housing. They're also some of the happiest societies in the world. So, is socialism as bad as people make it out to be? What does socialism look like? Today, as capitalism falls apart, what would an alternative look like? And would it look so bad?